We're joined now by Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzales, who's in San Diego, California this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Margaret. Thank you for having me.
As you well know, the Justice Department has given Governor Abbott until 1 p.m. on Monday to remove this floating barrier in the Rio Grande, which he says is in place to expel migrants. Do you think this is humane and acceptable?
I think the border crisis has been anything but humane. I think you're seeing the governor do everything he possibly can to secure the border. But you have this states versus central government nonstop going back and forth. The buoys are one step. I think you're seeing how desperate a situation is happening in Texas. But what I'm seeing is people are getting injured along the border. People are drowning, certainly in that river. I would much rather see not one person step foot in that river, vice going through these obstacles and other areas.
Right, but the administration says that in 1 week alone, agents reported dozens of migrants with injuries, including those broken limbs you referenced, and drownings, including several children under the age of 1. Should those buoys be removed now?
I don't think the buoys are the problem. Honestly, Margaret, this has been happening every single week. We see people drown. Last year, there were hundreds of migrants that are drowning. I'm glad it's getting some attention. I'd much rather see the attention get focused on something else. The reality is the buoy is only a very small little portion of the river. So it continues to have these other obstacles. I am concerned, though, that, I've seen reports that DPS troopers, over a dozen, have filed complaints about what is happening. The
administration is looking at some of these claims being made by Texas troopers and Texas medics. One of them, Nicholas Wingate, had an email that went public. I'm sure you've seen it. He said troopers were ordered to push small children and nursing babies back into the river, to deny water to migrants in this extreme heat. He said a pregnant woman who was in the midst of a miscarriage had to be cut out of razor wire she was ensnared in. This is your district. Is this acceptable? These tactics.
It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable, and it hasn't been acceptable for 2 years. If this was important to President Biden, I'm happy to host him in Eagle Pass and show him everything.
But this medic is saying they will take measures under the law, but not ones that are inhumane. Are these tactics, in your view, inhumane?
Everything that is happening along the border is just adding fuel to the fire. The governor, no doubt, is doing everything he can to secure the border, but there is a disconnect between what is happening at the top and the person at the ground that is delivering, that is doing the actual function. I would be happy to host the President of the United States in Eagle Pass and walk through this situation. To me, Congress has to solve this because we've been waiting on a president for decades to solve this, and it's not going to be solved. That's why I introduced the HIRE Act. What the HIRE Act does is it focuses on legal immigration. I'm a proponent of legal immigration. Right now, 9 out of 10 people that come over illegally do not qualify for asylum. So let's stop sending them down this route. I'm excited. This HIRE Act has a dozen Republican co-sponsors and half a dozen Democrat co-sponsors. What it does, it takes work visas from 1 year to 3 years.
Do you have any pledge from the Speaker of the House that he will put your bill to a vote?
I've spoken with leaderships on both sides of the aisle. I think this bill has a long way to go. In my eyes, in the 118th Congress, what can get done is something along these lines. Immigration reform has for so long been focused on the fringes, focused on border security or pathway to citizenship. This does none of that. This focuses on work visas.
Right. It's very, very, very narrow. And it's very, very focused on seasonal workers and extending for a very short period of time, which I understand your broader efforts, but it's chipping away at a problem. In the moment we are in, do you think this immediate crisis at the border, do you have any doubts about the effectiveness of what the state is doing?
I do worry what's happening at all levels, state, local, federal. And what I see is a disconnect. I see distrust. I see Republicans blaming Democrats, Democrats blaming Republicans, and round and round we go with nothing getting accomplished. The goal of the HIRE Act was one simple thing: create trust and put one step forward.
In terms of the policies in place right now at the border, a California judge is poised to potentially throw out some of the Biden border policies that were put in place because they are characterized as too restrictive. Okay. This would declare migrants ineligible for asylum if they enter illegally or fail to seek protection in another country. That's the current policy. The court may throw that out. What do you think will happen? And do you think the administration deserves any credit for what they have put in place?
The numbers are absolutely down, but we're still on track for 100,000 people coming over illegally a month. These are still historic numbers. They are down. I'd much rather see the administration, instead of focusing on illegal immigration, because right now 9 out of 10 people that claim asylum aren't going to get asylum. So stop sending them down this dead-end road. I would much rather partner with the administration or anyone on legal immigration. There's no talk of legal immigration. There's no talk of increasing legal pathways. It's only what happens when people are here illegally.
So Homeland Security and the Secretary deserve some credit for the numbers being down, but you're just saying it's insufficient.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. They do deserve some credit for the numbers being down, but there's a lot of reasons for that. It's also 115 degrees in Texas right now. So, a lot of people are waiting until a cooler part of the year to come over. But once again, I don't want one person to step 1 foot in that river illegally. Yeah. What if there's a route where they didn't have to be smuggled in a train? What if the Hire Act got passed and people can come over and work legally, not having to live in the shadows, have to live, can be able to live their lives. Most people are coming here for one reason, Margaret, and that's economic purposes.
I also want to ask you about other bipartisan efforts you have undertaken for school safety and around guns. Uvalde is in your district, and you championed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which was put in place after the Uvalde massacre. So why is it that schools in your district are being denied grants that they were supposed to be given under this law?
I had a discussion with the Attorney General on this, and to his credit, we're working together on it. There's a couple of things. One is, honestly, the money is just not going to the places it needs to go. That's one. Another area is a lot of times these rural communities. I'll give you a brief example. Marfa, Texas, small West Texas community. They have 4 police officers. If they were to get this grant, it would take them from 4 to 5. They were ecstatic about it. They stayed up until 11 o'clock filling out this grant the best they could. So a large part of that is getting the help they need.
Understood. And thank you, Congressman, for your time today.